father and I made 15 royal babies all by ourselves. I do not see why the whole lot of you cannot make just one.
Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz stood at the center of one of the largest royal families in British history, raising 14 surviving children who would each carry the weight of duty, expectation, and legacy. Between 1762 and 1783, she devoted herself to motherhood on an extraordinary scale, guiding princes and princesses whose lives would shape the monarchy in complex and often dramatic ways. Though history often highlights crowns and succession, the real story lies within this family. Siblings bound by privilege, yet marked by personal struggles, rivalries, and responsibilities. Queen Charlotte's role as a mother was not simply ceremonial. It was foundational, shaping a generation of royals whose lives were far more intricate than they first appear. George IV. George was born in 1762, the eldest child and future king from his very first breath. He was also, by the time he died in 1830, one of the most despised monarchs Britain had ever produced. The Times wrote that there had never been an individual less regretted by his fellow creatures. Wellington called him the worst man he had ever met in his life. So what went wrong? The answer begins in 1784, when the 21-year-old Prince of Wales met a Catholic widow named Maria Fitzherbert and fell so completely in love that he stabbed himself to get her attention. He wounded himself just enough to bleed, summoned Maria to his side, and threatened to die unless she agreed to marry him. She signed a document and fled to France the next morning. George pursued her. On December 15, 1785, they married secretly in the drawing room of her London house. The officiant was a clergyman George had bailed out of debtor's prison that same week. The ceremony was real in the eyes of the church and completely illegal under British law. When Parliament asked him about it, his friend Charles James Fox declared the story a malicious falsehood in the House of Commons. Maria was humiliated publicly. Parliament cleared George's enormous debts. He abandoned Maria, reconciled, abandoned her again, and died with her portrait around his neck, as he had specifically requested. Staff found 7,000 envelopes in his rooms after death, each containing a lock of a different woman's hair. His official marriage to Princess Caroline of Brunswick collapsed before it began. They met. He asked for brandy. She called him fat and nothing like his portrait. At the wedding, he was so drunk his groomsmen held him upright. Their daughter, Princess Charlotte, was born 9 months later, and they lived separately after that. When Charlotte died, giving birth in 1817, she triggered the succession crisis that would eventually produce Queen Victoria. His only legitimate child died in a delivery room in 1817. The crown was now tumbling toward a man who had spent his youth at sea and had absolutely no intention of sitting on a throne. Prince Frederick. Frederick, the second son, is remembered as the grand old Duke of York from a nursery rhyme, and mainly because of a woman in a blue dress who brought him down. The real Frederick is far more significant. Military historian Sir John Fortescue declared he did more for the army than any one man had done for it in the whole of its history. And this was not flattery. As commander-in-chief, Frederick founded what became Sandhurst, created the Rifle Brigade, standardized training, improved hospitals, and insisted promotions be based on merit rather than money. Wellington acknowledged that Frederick's reforms made the victories over Napoleon possible. His downfall came through his mistress, Mary Ann Clark, who discovered that access to the second most powerful man in Britain was worth more than his allowance. While Frederick funded her 3 carriages and 20 servants, Clark began selling army promotions behind his back. She appeared before Parliament in 1809 in a fashionable blue gown, and cheerfully admitted everything. The inquiry ran 12 days. Frederick resigned. His vindication came when Clark admitted joining the campaign purely for money. He was reinstated. She was later imprisoned for libel. The footnote nobody tells you. Mary Anne Clark was the great-great-grandmother of novelist Daphne du Maurier, who wrote a novel about her in 1854. Frederick died in 1827, £2 million in debt. The column built in his memory was, as contemporaries joked, tall enough to place him beyond the reach of his creditors. Frederick had no children. George had only one, and she was dead. The throne was heading toward a man who once offered a complete stranger a lift in his royal carriage and genuinely could not understand why that was unusual. William IV. William joined the Royal Navy at 13, sailed the world, fought in the American Revolution, and once became the target of a kidnapping plot personally approved by George Washington that British intelligence foiled. He befriended Horatio Nelson in the West Indies. He was blunt, occasionally crude, and completely lacking political polish. Charles Greville compared his head to a pineapple and called him the silliest old gentleman in his own dominions. From 1791, he lived with the actress Dorothea Jordan in a genuinely happy domestic arrangement, raising 10 illegitimate children at Bushy House in Teddington. Jordan was the most celebrated comic actress of her generation and often the household's primary earner. Then, the succession crisis hit. Princess Charlotte died in 1817. William left Dorothea, cut her payments when she was forced back to performing, and removed their daughters from her care. Jordan died in poverty in France in 1816. William never spoke of her publicly again. When both his brothers died before him, he became king in 1830 at 64. His coronation cost under £30,000. His defining act was the Reform Act of 1832. When the House of Lords blocked electoral reform, William threatened to flood the chamber with new pro-reform peers. The Lords backed down. The act abolished rotten boroughs and began modern democracy. Slavery was abolished across most of the British Empire under his reign. He clung to life in his final weeks to ensure Victoria turned 18 before he died, sparing her a regency. He succeeded by exactly 6 days. After 3 sons, George III and Charlotte finally had a daughter. She was educated, capable, completely trapped, and the man her father eventually allowed her to marry was described by Napoleon as proof that human skin had outer limits. Charlotte, Princess Royal. Charlotte was born in 1766, the first daughter, and spent the next 30 years waiting for permission to marry. The 6 daughters called their existence at Kew and Windsor the nunnery. Princess Sophia wrote that she sometimes wished someone would put them all in a sack and drown them in the Thames. George III adored his daughters, had watched his own sisters suffer in miserable royal marriages, and could not bear to let them go. By 1797, Charlotte was 30 years old and had been waiting for nearly a decade. Her husband, Frederick, the hereditary Prince of Württemberg, stood nearly 7 feet tall and weighed approximately 440 pounds. Napoleon quipped that God had created Frederick to demonstrate the outer limit of how far human skin could stretch without bursting. Frederick replied that he wondered how so much poison fit inside Napoleon's small head. Charlotte maintained she was genuinely happy with him. After his death in 1816, she wore black for the rest of her life and died in England in 1828, still in her widow's dress. Flora Fraser wrote that Charlotte was thrilled to escape the nunnery and never regretted it. For a woman who waited 30 years for permission to have a life, that reads as the quietest possible victory. Charlotte escaped first. Her sister Augusta never escaped at all. She received proposals from eligible men for years. Her father refused every single one. When the man she loved died, they found her picture in his pocket. Then comes Prince Edward. Edward presents one of the most striking contradictions in the family. He was a brutal military commander whose discipline triggered near mutinies. He also genuinely believed in abolishing slavery, the rights of Catholics, and American independence. He is the reason Queen Victoria existed. As governor of Gibraltar in 1802, he imposed floggings of up to 999 lashes for desertion. On Christmas Eve, soldiers marched fully armed toward his quarters, shouting they had been treated worse than slaves. Artillery was deployed. Men died. His brother Frederick, as commander-in-chief, condemned his conduct as marked by cruelty and oppression from first to last and recalled him permanently. Edward never held field command again. His companion through every posting across 3 continents was Julie de Saint-Laurent, a French woman he had met in Geneva in 1789. They were together for 27 years. At Halifax, he laid out garden paths spelling her name and dug a heart-shaped pond in her honor. When the succession crisis of 1817 forced him to seek a legitimate wife, he abandoned Julie and married Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld. Their daughter, Alexandrina Victoria, was born on 24th of May, 1819. Edward died of pneumonia in January 1820, when his daughter was 8 months old. He never knew what she would become. Queen Victoria later said that of all her father's brothers, he was the best. Edward's daughter became Queen Victoria. His sister Augusta never became anyone's wife. She spent her entire life loving someone in complete silence, and the truth only surfaced after the man died. Princess Augusta. Augusta, born in 1768, was by all contemporary accounts the most beautiful woman at court. Men of appropriate rank asked for her hand for years. George III refused every approach without exception. The novelist Fanny Burney described Augusta as possessing a gaiety and charm that was quite irresistible, with much genuine and original humor. She played cricket with her brothers, kept a library of over 800 plays, and could terrify her tutors when provoked. Around 1799, she fell in love with General Sir Brent Spencer, a career soldier in her brother Frederick's service, and said absolutely nothing about it for years. She drafted a letter to the Prince Regent in March 1812 confessing her feelings and requesting private permission to marry. She could not send it until June. Queen Charlotte refused entirely. Augusta never married officially. When Spencer died in 1828, he was found holding a locket with Augusta's picture inside and a card claiming they were married. Whether a ceremony existed or this was a private declaration, no record survives. Augusta died in 1840 at 71, having spent her entire adult life conducting a love affair the world was never permitted to see. Charles Greville wrote that the princesses were secluded from the world with their passions boiling over, ready to fall for the first man circumstances allowed near them. In Augusta's case, he was completely accurate. Augusta's sister Elizabeth was called the least beautiful of the daughters and was reminded of this regularly. She responded by becoming a published artist and waited 48 years to leave on her own terms. Princess Elizabeth. Elizabeth, born in 1770, trained alongside Benjamin West and Thomas Gainsborough, and became genuinely skilled in etching, engraving, and paper cutting. In 1795, she published 24 allegorical prints, celebrated enough to inspire a literary response, and a second collection followed in 1806. Her paper cutout albums were remarkable objects, one from 1808 bound in dark green leather with a silver clasp bearing her cipher, containing cutouts, woodblock prints, pencil sketches, and dried flowers tied with purple ribbon. She painted the trellis ceiling at Queen Charlotte's cottage at Kew and decorated an entire gallery at Frogmore with botanical paintings pasted directly to the walls. She ran her own model farm at Old Windsor. In 1818, at 47, she married Frederick, Landgrave of Hesse-Homburg, a man contemporaries best remembered for being overweight and perpetually smelling of tobacco. Her mother resisted for weeks. Elizabeth refused to back down. She understood perfectly that freedom was the actual prize and not romance. She outlived her husband, dying in Frankfurt in 1840 at 70. She had waited 48 years for permission to have her own front door and spent the final 2 decades answering to no one. In a family full of people who never got what they wanted, Elizabeth got it late and made every moment of it count. Elizabeth found her freedom. Her brother Ernest is the only one of the 15 described by contemporaries as the most hated man in England, and the accusations against him went well beyond politics. Prince Ernest. Ernest, born in 1771, earned his reputation honestly. He fought against revolutionary France in Flanders, where a saber wound left a permanent scar across his face, and a later cannonball permanently damaged his left eye. His brother William IV described him precisely. Ernest is not a bad fellow, but if anyone has a corn, he will be sure to tread on it. On 31st May 1810, Ernest was attacked while asleep at St. James's Palace. When they found his second valet, a Piedmontese man named Sellis, his door was locked from inside. Sellis was found with his throat cut so deeply his spine was the only thing keeping his head attached. A razor lay nearby. A wash basin held bloody water, suggesting someone had washed after the killing. The coroner's jury returned a verdict of self-inflicted death. 2 men were later imprisoned for publicly claiming otherwise. Princess Caroline circulated the claim that Ernest had committed a sexual assault against one of his own sisters. In Princess Sophia's private letters to General Garth, she described Ernest's attempts upon her, language suggesting failed advances. The Prince Regent reportedly warned his sisters never to be alone with Cumberland. Ernest became King of Hanover in 1837, dismissed the brothers Grimm from their university posts for protesting his revocation of the liberal constitution, and ruled autocratically until his death in 1851. His statue still stands in Hanover today. Ernest's brother Augustus could not have been more different. He owned 50,000 books, married illegally twice, and became the most progressive royal of his entire generation. Prince Augustus. Augustus, born in 1773, was the only son who never pursued a military career because chronic asthma prevented it. Sent to Rome at 19, he fell in love with Lady Augusta Murray, married her secretly in Rome on April 4, 1793, and then married her again in London later that year without revealing either of their identities. The Court of Arches annulled both ceremonies in 1794. He continued the relationship until Lady Augusta's death. Their son is today recognized as the earliest documented case of multiple sclerosis in the medical record, diagnosed posthumously in 1848. From diaries the young man kept for 22 years, describing his worsening symptoms. Augustus married again in 1831, Lady Cecilia Buggen, again without royal permission, and with complete awareness of what he was doing. His library contained over 50,000 volumes, including 1,000 editions of the Bible, and hundreds of manuscripts in Hebrew, Latin, Greek, Arabic, and Burmese. He served as president of the Royal Society, spoke in Parliament for Catholic emancipation, abolition of slavery, and removal of restrictions on Jewish people. and became patron of a hospital for Jewish children. When the teenage Victoria was effectively imprisoned under the controlling Kensington system, it was Augustus who publicly asked the Prime Minister whether the princess was allowed freedom, friends, and sea bathing. He gave her away at her wedding to Prince Albert, and was buried at Kensal Green Public Cemetery, rather than Windsor, by his own explicit request. The family's stated favorite son was not Augustus. It was his brother Adolphus. George III openly preferred him, and Adolphus spent his life quietly doing what everyone else in the family failed to do. Prince Adolphus. Adolphus, born in 1774 and known in the family as Dolly, was, by the Royal Collection Trust's own account, George III's favorite son. This is remarkable given the competition. It tells you that the king valued steadiness above everything, because Adolphus was the steadiest person in a catastrophically unsteady family. He was sent to Hanover at 12, joined the military at 16, saw genuine combat in Flanders, was wounded and captured at the Battle of Honscoot in 1793, and returned to duty without drama. He married Princess Augusta of Hesse-Kassel in 1818 and genuinely adored her. His letter after her arrival reads, "Every hour I feel that my esteem and attachment for my bride increase, and she really is everything, both as to heart, mind, and person, that I could wish." In a family full of abandoned wives and secret ceremonies, a man who was simply happy was close to revolutionary. As Viceroy of Hanover from 1816, he guided the kingdom through volatile post-Napoleonic years, with what everyone who dealt with him called wisdom and discretion. He died in 1850. His daughter's daughter became Queen Mary, consort of George V, making Adolphus the direct ancestor of the modern British royal family. Adolphus built something quietly and left it standing. His sister Mary was quieter still, watching every drama unfold, nursing everyone through their crises, and ultimately outliving all 14 of her siblings. Princess Mary. Mary, born in 1776, was by most accounts the most beautiful of the 6 daughters and the most self-contained. In a family that generated scandal constantly, she left behind almost none. Around 1796, she fell in love with Prince Frederick of Orange-Nassau, then in exile in London. George III refused permission because her elder sisters had not yet married. Frederick died in 1799. Mary was allowed official mourning, did not complain publicly, and waited 17 more years. In 1816, at 40, she married her first cousin, Prince William Frederick, Duke of Gloucester and Edinburgh. Queen Charlotte noted that William was very much in love while writing that for Mary. Being her own mistress, and having her own house, and being able to walk in the streets all delighted her in their several ways. The marriage was reportedly unhappy. His death in 1834 changed everything. The woman who had spent decades looking after everyone else finally had space to flourish. Her home averaged 20 visitors a day in her final years. She died in 1857. Aged 81, the last surviving child of George III, and the only one of the 15 known to have been photographed. Queen Victoria called her a link with bygone generations and said they had all looked upon her as a sort of grandmother. Mary survived everyone. Her sister Sophia survived too. But survival is a complicated word when the person you trusted most spends years emptying your accounts while you are too blind to stop them. Princess Sophia. Sophia, born in 1777, was the most sheltered of all the children, spending most of her early life as Queen Charlotte's personal companion. Around 1798, she fell in love with General Thomas Garth, her father's chief equerry, 33 years her senior, with a large purple birthmark across part of his face. Charles Greville called him a hideous old devil. Princess Mary referred to the purple light of love. A court attendant noted that Sophia was so violently in love with him that everyone could see it, and she could not contain herself in his presence. Around 1800, Sophia became pregnant. Queen Charlotte told the nearly blind king his daughter was suffering from dropsy. When George III noticed her changing appearance, he was told it had been cured by sea bathing. He accepted this, repeated the story to visitors, and never suspected the truth. A child was born in Weymouth in August 1800, registered as a foundling, and raised quietly by Garth as his son. Princess Caroline later spread the claim that the father was not Garth, but Ernest himself. In Sophia's letters to Garth, she described Ernest's attempts upon her. The Prince Regent reportedly warned his sisters not to be alone with Cumberland. In 1828, the boy raised as Thomas Garth discovered his parentage and attempted to blackmail the royal family. The family took his documents without paying. He went to the press, and every dark rumor resurfaced. Sophia died in 1848, leaving barely £1,600, after Sir John Conroy had extracted an estimated $148,000 from her while she was too blind to stop him. 2 of Charlotte's children died 9 months apart from the same cause, and the grief those deaths created in their father never healed for the rest of his life. Prince Octavius. Octavius was born in February 1779, the 8th son, a lovely child with long golden curls and bright blue eyes. George III carried him on his shoulders around the palace and was observed kissing visitors while playing with the boy on the carpet. In early 1783, Octavius and his sister Sophia were inoculated against smallpox. The procedure was not a modern vaccine, but an introduction of the actual virus through cuts in the skin, carrying genuine risk. Sophia recovered. Octavius became severely ill within days and died on the 3rd of May, 1783, aged 4. George III's grief was complete. He told those around him there would be no heaven for him if Octavius was not there. During his first serious mental episode in 1788, servants found the king on Christmas Eve holding a pillow and rocking it gently, telling them it was Octavius, born again. He held extended imaginary conversations with both Octavius and Alfred during later episodes for years. When Gainsborough's portrait was exhibited at the Royal Academy a week after the death, 3 of Octavius's older sisters broke down in tears before the public viewing. The father had told the world which loss he could not survive. The world had made him survive it anyway. Octavius was not the first child they lost. His brother Alfred died 9 months earlier from the same inoculation. Standing at Alfred's deathbed, George III said words he would spend the rest of his life unable to take back. Prince Alfred. Alfred was born in September 1780, the 9th son, and there is strong evidence he had a congenital heart defect that made every illness more dangerous than usual. In 1782, he was inoculated against smallpox. The eruptions across his face and eyes were severe. He was taken to Deal Castle, where sea air might strengthen him. His court nurse wrote home with cautious optimism that his appetite was good, and he would surely gain ground. He died on August 20th, 1782, 1 month before his 2nd birthday. Queen Charlotte wept openly and sent his nurse a locket with Alfred's hair inside, thanking her for caring for her dear little angel Alfred. Here is the detail that makes this story almost unbearable. Standing at Alfred's deathbed, George III said words remembered for years afterward. He was very sorry for Alfred, but had it been Octavius, he should have died too. 9 months later, it was Octavius who died. The king had named his breaking point in advance and was then forced to meet it. George and Charlotte commissioned a painting not depicting grief, but reunion. Alfred, on the other side of death, welcoming Octavius to heaven. It hung in George III's dressing room at Windsor Castle, where he saw it first thing every morning for the rest of his life. The youngest child was born 3 months after Octavius died. She became the most beloved of all 15 children, and when she was dying, she pressed a lock of her own hair into a ring and placed it on her father's finger. Princess Amelia. Amelia was born in August 1783, 3 months after Octavius died. George III called her Emily and adored her beyond ordinary parental affection. In 1801, recovering in Weymouth, she fell in love with General Charles Fitzroy, a royal equerry 20 years her senior, and never fell out of love with him. She signed letters using the initials AFR, meaning Amelia Fitzroy, had silverware engraved with their shared initials, and called him her ever-beloved angel. She wrote that she envied those who could marry, and that General Fitzroy possessed all her affections. By 1808, she had begun researching the Royal Marriages Act, looking for a legal path to petition the Privy Council when she turned 25. Queen Charlotte reportedly told her she would permit the match the moment the king was dead. Tuberculosis had been progressing since 1801. By 1810, at 27, Amelia was visibly dying. She arranged for a ring to be made at the court jewelers Rundle and Bridge. Behind a small crystal tablet inside the bezel was pressed a lock of her own hair. Around the edge were the words, "Remember me." When her father came to her bedside, she placed the ring on his finger and said, "Pray wear this for my sake, and I hope you will not forget me." The king looked at the ring and at his daughter and said, "That I can never do. You are engraven on my heart." He bent down and kissed her. It was the last time he saw her clearly. Fitzroy was allowed private visits arranged quietly by her sisters. He sat with her for hours. Her last words about him were, "Tell Charles I die blessing him." She died on November 2, 1810, and left everything to Fitzroy in her will. Her brothers, as executors, persuaded him to surrender his claim, promising her wishes would be honored. The promise was not kept. George III broke. He descended into permanent derangement, holding conversations with ghosts, wearing his daughter's hair on his finger until his death in January 1820. He never knew the outcome of Waterloo. He knew nothing except whatever his fractured mind constructed for him. The ring that said, "Remember me," had taken everything. 15 children. One cage built by a father who loved them too much to let them go. One law he signed with the best intentions that quietly destroyed almost every life in the family. Which of these 15 people do you think history has treated most unfairly? And which story genuinely shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments.